Welcome to the podcast. My name is David Shanhun, and these are the chats I wish I could have had with someone as I've created life as a full-time musician. If you're on that road and you need a friend, or you need to hear the same stories and struggles that you're going through from another human's mouth, you're in the right place. Connect with me at davidshanhun.com and let's move you into that space where you're really thriving and sharing your gifts with the world. Let's go. Hey team, coming to you from my mid-tour accommodation this week, and wanted to share, I used to get so frustrated because of something that was a really nice thing from people at shows, and that is people used to come up to me and say, "You're so lucky to get to do what you love. Oh my gosh, how good is it that you get to do what you love?" etc., etc. And I used to find myself at different gigs super frustrated by this, and I didn't get the message. I did not get the message at all. But there's two things, I guess. Is super nice to receive that kind of message, that in someone else's eyes you're doing what you love, you're doing what you enjoy, and presumably there's a level of love, enjoyment, enthusiasm, energy that comes through anytime you're doing a gig, whether you're excited about it or not. But the frustration was, in those moments I wasn't doing what I loved. Or maybe another way, another perspective is, I wasn't enjoying those moments. There was something else on my mind, some other nudge to be doing something a little bit different. And as I film this and record this episode, it's very fascinating to me. I'm mid-tour. I have I've been doing a bunch of shows. I had a big travel day yesterday, and actually in the middle of the tour did a 40th birthday, a private function. And it's so beautiful to witness the contrast and be able to enjoy all of it. And I think there's a couple of things that will come out of this week's episode, and one is just the fact to enjoy where you're at, whatever it is. And so when people used to come up to me at a bar gig or at an event and say, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky to do what you love," absolutely. I will acknowledge I'm very grateful I get to play music. That is my full income, career, like however you want to describe it. But that is my life. Playing music and all the admin and things that come with that as well. You know, I think people forget that at some point you had to learn those songs, you had to practice. You had to work on your voice, you had to work on your guitar skills, whatever instrument you play, or if you're not a musician, whatever skills you've developed to then do the thing that you do, whether it's in front of people, whether it's a job. Those things didn't happen overnight, and I think all of us, me included, forget that. It feels like this is now just a natural expression of me. The human David that's been on this planet 39 years has all sorts of experiences and skills and struggles and things that I've overcome to be this version today. So why did it annoy me? Why did I have this like grating feeling when someone came up to me? I'm doing music full time, I'm performing, which was a dream of mine for a long time. And then someone would come up to me after a show and be like, "Oh my gosh, you get to do what you love, that's amazing." It was grating because I wasn't loving it. I'd achieved an initial goal for me. And I'd also settled and just been like, okay, cool, I've ticked that box of I'm now able to support myself, earn an income, earn a living, and do that full time. Amazing. But my dream is really to be sharing something more than this, to be connecting in a way that I really share what my gifts are, and my gifts are beyond just a musical sense. Yes, there's an ability and a skill and an emotion and things that comes through me playing music, but the setting was wrong. Shall we say wrong? The setting was not the fullest capacity of what I have to offer. And it's interesting just recording this. As I record these episodes, by the way, there's a lot that I realize for myself. So I share things in situations and scenarios that I hope you take something from it for yourself, from me just sharing vulnerably and openly about life and my thoughts as they come through. But also in a funny way, it's selfish. I get to hear myself, if you like, being honest about some of the things in my journey of where I've stopped and settled, or been awkward or been okay with, and it's very interesting. So my dream was always to be in front of people playing, and there's levels to that. There's levels of satisfaction and joy within that for myself. And so I think there's two things that probably come out of this podcast today is like, it's, you have your dream and I have my dream, and none of them will be specifically the same of what really fulfills us and what really, maybe not motivates us, but but what like has us do something and be like, man, I'm content, I'm happy. That's I got to share me. It got to be received by people, and for me that's complete. As much as yes, in terms of financial success, yes, I would love to have the house on the beachfront, a beautiful car, just spare cash to be able to do whatever. But that's fundamentally not really what drives me. And I had to learn this from the business side. We're going off topic a little bit. I had to learn this from the business side of music, because I would be awkward about asking to get paid or following up on just the business side of things. Because for me, if I played and someone was like, that was magic, oh my gosh, cool, that's the transaction for me, is I've given and I've received in compliments or engagement, or someone being genuinely feeling great about that. I'm like, complete. Yes, money needs to be involved, because that's how I pay my rent and buy food, and that's how life kind of works in that sense. So a little bit of a tangent, but why would it grate on me is because there was another level. My dream was to be at those points in a different environment, and some of you that have been at the tour shows this last week, there's a different me that shows up in a tour setting, in a ticketed show setting, where I speak freely, I share different songs. It's a different flavor and a different engagement. But it was the nudge, that awkwardness was a nudge for me. It was just like, call it what you will, it's like maybe the universe's way of being like, prodding me a little bit and being like, there's another aspect you need to be doing as well as this. You can do this. It's great. You enjoy it as well. But there's something unfulfilled in you, which was why it had me be frustrated. And the nasty side comes out, just because, fuck, this is what this podcast is about too, right? Is unedited, me sharing openly. The nastiness comes out is internally, if I'm angry at myself that I'm not truly pursuing stepping into those awkward spaces of putting on my own shows, of doing that stuff, instead of being grateful that someone else has gone, man, you're doing what you love, I would be like, they don't understand. They don't. It's so wild. How could they understand? It's my dream. It's not theirs. And it's not like I've shared, like, hey, before the show, I just want you to know, here's my dream, here's my vision, here's what I'm up to. So if you could just adjust your comments appropriately. It's like, no, all of us share what's true for us. So in fact, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you'll know that I go on tangents. This is one. Tristan. This is a friend from school, from high school. Great human, lovely. We caught up recently, and great tennis player at high school. And one thing I loved, and it was strange to me because I didn't see anyone else doing this, but people would compliment him on a nice shot at high school, and he would simply say thanks. And it was like, this was really bizarre for me because I don't think I'd seen or witnessed a compliment being given and it just being received. And there was nothing else. There was no like attachments. You know, like when someone gives a gift and you're like, thank you. But there's this weird energy of expectation that there's something else to it. Like, oh, you're good too. You know, or it's like, no, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. So Tristan, if you ever listen to this, thank you. It's interesting, those little moments and memories that it's like you see something and shit, 20 years later, it's like you're like, oh, I think I understand what that was. Maybe, who knows, maybe I'll make a podcast in 20 years time and it will be very different again. But the point of all this is it's like the people sharing those compliments, to them, maybe what I'm doing in terms of putting myself out there and playing music is like, oh my gosh, that it's inspiring to them. They have some sort of dream that they're aspiring to, that seeing someone play music and be like, yeah, this is my full-time thing. It is what I've dreamed of doing, performing to people. It's like, that's inspiring to them to chase something and be like, I wonder if I could do the thing, whatever it is for them that they've been wanting to do. And yeah, it's usually will require some awkwardness, some messiness, stepping out of the comfort zone. But also to me, it's an acknowledgement of like, oh man, I am doing what I love. And that subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, feeling of awkwardness, like, it's not truly what I love, is just a refinement for me to go, I need to tweak this a little bit. I need to change it. I need to step into that awkward, uncomfortable space where there's tension because you don't necessarily know the exact path, which is exactly what happened when I quit to do music full time, and maybe we'll talk about that on one of the episodes. But it's like being willing to step into that vulnerable, uncomfortable space. It's the same uncomfortable, awkward feeling for all of us. It's not like, if it was just easy and like comfortable, we'd all be like, we'd all be doing exactly what we wanted. But it's not that you can't do it. It's that if you haven't done it before, or if it contrasts maybe a belief you have that it's going to be tricky, that it's going to be hard, that who am I to do it? Am I good enough? Am I this? Am I that? All the thoughts we have, right? So, kind of like a lot in this. But the one thing is, it's your dream, not theirs. So if someone says, oh my gosh, you've totally made it. If you haven't made it for you, you can acknowledge and appreciate the person. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I so appreciate your compliment. And you might get an awareness for you in that same moment that like, oh, there's another level. There's something else that's there for me to do. So we're going to wrap up. I just want to touch quickly, because I know some of you have been following the tour, and we talked about like, oh my, there's one ticket sale. How did it go? We had 35 people on a midweek night, and it was a beautiful, beautiful night. And I'm so grateful to all of you that came out, to all of you that have been seeing the shows. But it just feels so good. Essentially to have been like, we went ahead with it. However it was going to work out, we went ahead with it. And I got a bunch of beautiful, beautiful comments and connection, in many ways like what we're chatting about here, where they had an appreciation and an experience of the show that I put on, of me expressing myself. And I got to witness that reflected back, and just the gratitude I feel for people coming out to a show. It's a two-way thing. Is I get so much out of you being there and your presence and energy, witnessing and taking in what I do. So it's a two-way street, and I appreciate you all. But I just wanted to add that in to the end of this podcast. And I'm going to wrap this up and edit this and jump on the road. I have another show this afternoon up in the Coromandel, so I need to get driving and back on the road playing music. But thank you all. I appreciate your comments on the podcast. I trust something I say each week is of value for you, and I appreciate you all tuning in. We will see you next week in next week's episode.